Hello again, guys. We're back with another really interesting indie game. Today we're going to look at Will Fight for Food by a studio called Pyrodactyl. This is a very deep game, and actually a little bit more deep than I definitely expected after my first little playing of it. It follows the story of a wrestler who lost the big match at the end of a tournament and was sort of disenfranchised and had to leave town. And then eventually he comes back to town, and he's gonna come back for vengeance, and he's going to take over. And you sort of shape how that goes. So it's an RPG slash brawler, and I would compare it to the likes of, like, if you combine Double Dragon and like a little bit of Leisure Suit Larry for sort of the point and click nature and the humor of it. And it's not technically a point-and-click game, but you actually walk around with the arrow keys and stuff, but it's got a feeling like that, like a bit of the same humor. And then it's got a really interesting sort of Mass Effect slash LA Noire style emotion system for dealing with situations if you don't want to fight. So you'll see here there's a setup where basically there's this squatter shows up on this guy's property here. You'll see the guy over at the house, and you basically have a bunch of choices of how you want to resolve this situation. You can choose to either just beat the guy up, either guy actually, because that's sort of the staple of this game, is you can beat up anyone at any time, or you can use words to solve the problem. And you'll see here's a really interesting setup. We've got sort of a personality case file over on the right, and you can read over it. Says like timid, avoids confrontation, likes confidence, conspiracy nut. And then context, this guy must have trouble with romance, have got to be assertive. And that gives you sort of a framework to work within of how you want to approach this. So you pick a body language, an opinion, whether you agree or indifferent or disagree, and then a tone with which you deliver that news. And that will determine the outcome of basically a check against whether or not you succeeded. And in that case, I did succeed. My opinion was increased by that guy. And then you can see if you just hit spacebar at any time, you can put your mask on and just fight. So it's got a full inventory system, it's got items to find, a whole bunch of different locations to explore, tons of NPCs and dialogue to go through. I mean, I played it for about an hour, and I hardly feel like I saw even the beginning of what was available. And you see some funny dialogue here. Hi, Mr. Fire Hydrant, good to see you're all blinged out. My grandpa told me never to trust golden fire hydrants, but I'll make an exception for you. Not really sure exactly what that means, but it made me smile. And then here's another situation where there's this guy hanging out in an alley here, and he's trying to give me a quest, but I decide I don't really want to bother with the quest, so why don't I just beat him down? And that's exactly what I do. Even starting right at the beginning of the game, it feels like you can pretty much take on just about anybody until you get mobbed by a group of guys or girls. And that's usually when you run into trouble. So then I go on to explore. There's a pizza parlor that seems to be run by some sort of mafia or something, and they're asking for fees to get in, which was kind of strange. And then I tell them I'm a former WFF fighter, and they say, no big deal then, you can come on in, take a seat. And there's a whole lot going on in this town that I haven't quite picked up on, but it seems like it's worth exploring and sort of figuring out. I get the sense that there's sort of a context going on, like the same way in the world of Pokemon, how everyone involved in that world knows and deals with Pokemon on a daily basis. I feel like everyone in this world, in Will Fight for Food, sort of is dealing with the WFF on a daily basis, and they're all sort of in tune with what's going on in that world. So that's why it was such a big deal for your character to get taken out from that tournament, and that's why he took it so seriously. So here's another major NPC that it looks like you get to deal with, and there's some quests. And take a side trip over to a hospital, and it says it's closed, which is very odd. There wasn't much to do in this area for some reason, so I left and went to the forest. And that led me to a cabin, and sort of one of the minor little complaints that I have, and I have to sort of temper that by saying that it's not so much a complaint as an observation, because the choice of how you want to deal with this is completely up to the player. But I would say that I feel like a lot of the dialogue seems a little bit long-winded. Some of it just sort of goes on for a little too long, and it sort of lost my interest. But I say that it's up to the player of how you deal with that, because you can choose to just beat up everyone that's talking to everyone else. So it's really not like you're stuck reading this stuff if you don't feel interested by it. And I think a lot of RPGs, and I haven't seen too many RPGs that function in this manner, I mean, you really kind of get a sense that you have a lot of freedom and choice with how you want to deal with situations. That you can talk to them, have a whole bunch of different emotion options. You know, there's all these stats based on that, or you can choose to just play the game like a brawler. It sort of reminded me of River City Ransom, another game that sort of approaches the brawler RPG element a little bit. So, yeah, I can't believe this game is actually only $5. It seems like there's a lot that went into it. I mean, if you look at the art style of it, it's all sort of hand-drawn, very sort of soft-shaded art, and the animation's decent enough. The fighting system, I mean, it's not super complicated, but when you add on that there's inventory items and all kinds of stuff going on with that, it definitely adds some depth there. Can't quite get a great sense for how long the game is, but just given what I could tell from playing it for the first hour or so, it seemed like there was a lot that I hadn't seen yet. So yeah, for the price that it is, it seems like a pretty substantial game. So also, to set up the scene that's going on right now, there's basically a disagreement between this head ranger here and this some sort of wildlife inspector guy that's come in. And I thought, well, they're fighting, so why don't I just take this guy out? And I guess they're all sort of allied together, so when I try to take this guy out, everybody else comes after me. And I go down pretty quickly, because I'm not about to go fight 5 people at once. So I loaded up a different save file here, and I sort of checked out some of the other locations that are available to explore. And I found this kind of strange treehouse populated with some people, and a dude in a koala suit, and an Iron Man guy, and some sort of robot. And then I went outside, and there's like another Iron Man guy out here, so I went down to the docks. And it looks like some sort of a ship, airplane, some boat sort of thing. And there's another little shot of some of the strange dialogue and sort of the weird places the game doesn't seem to mind going. And I get the sense that a lot of these characters that are walking around, this is all because everyone's sort of got their WFF persona. So a lot of these people you're encountering might have something to do with the spirit of these tournaments. That guy says he's a real robot. So in one of the last spots I go was I check out the school, and I find out there's like blood and glass all over the ground here, so I gotta explore that. And there's like all sorts of beat up people and all kinds of crashed down pieces of the furniture. And there's this guy out here, and it just seems right that I would probably need to beat him up. So I check out my inventory, and I had a chair in there, and I guess that improved my attack quite a bit. And it seems like without too much work I'm able to take him down. But I also want to mention the awesome music. If you listen to the background music, very cool. Interested in hearing more of the soundtrack, I really like that. And also the fact that there's actually modding support for this game adds quite a bit to it as well. So yeah, check it out. Will Fight for Food on Desura and direct from the developer's website, which I will link in the description. Okay, thanks very much for watching, guys, and I hope you enjoyed it. I will see you next time with another awesome indie game.